and welcome to True Crime with Richard Flopper. Today's episode isn't just about crime, it's about a person, a man who lived a quiet life, mostly unnoticed, until one summer back in 2018 when he did something that stunned the world. A man whose last flight was filled with not just stolen altitude, but with unspoken grief, hidden loneliness, and a moment of reckless freedom. I'm Richard Flopper, and this is a story of Richard Russell, or as the internet came to know him, Sky King. On August 10th, 2018, a Horizon Air Bombardier Q400 is sitting idle on the tarmac in Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. It's not scheduled to fly, but just after 7:30 p.m. it lifts off without clearance, piloted not by a trained aviator, but by a man named Richard Russell. He wasn't a terrorist, he wasn't a professional pilot, he was a baggage handler. And for 75 minutes, the skies above Seattle became the setting for a deeply human story. Part joyride, part tragedy, part existential cry for help. But before we get to that night, let's talk a little bit about who Richard really was.
Richard Bebo Russell was born in Key West, Florida in 1989. He grew up in a modest home, the youngest of three siblings. His friends described him as upbeat, kind, a funny guy, a guy who didn't mind making a fool of himself to make others laugh. In his youth, Richard moved to Alaska, where his family owned a bakery. There, he met Hannah, the woman who would later become his wife. They met in high school, and by all accounts, their love was genuine and deep. He later followed her to Washington State, and they eventually settled. In 2011, Richard joined Horizon Air as a ground service agent. This meant basically loading, unloading luggage, guiding aircraft on the tarmac, and performing routine ground maintenance. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Despite the job's monotony, Richard found ways to inject it with meaning. He was known for filming funny videos of himself and posting them up on YouTube. One, he jokes about the hilarity of airline food, and then another, he does a makeshift workout routine using cargo equipment. He was relatable, a little quirky, but nothing that seemed especially dark. But those who knew him say there were signs of restlessness, a man searching for purpose, possibly even escape. Richard often talked about doing something greater with his life. He dabbled in college courses, but never settled on a path. He was devoted to his wife and had a strong connection with his church, but something in him seemed unsatisfied. Richard worked odd hours. He didn't earn much, and despite his cheerful online persona, there was quite some frustration building. By 2018, he'd been working at SeaTac for over 6 years. He had access to restricted areas, including cockpits, and quietly, perhaps obsessively, he began learning how to fly, using home simulators. No formal lessons, no FAA certifications, just trial, error, and persistence. This brings us back to August the 10th. At 7:15 p.m, Richard entered the cockpit of a Horizon Air Q400. Within minutes, he had the engine started, and at 7:32 p.m, he was airborne. What followed was both breathtaking and heartbreaking. Air traffic control, initially confused, tried to reach the pilot, and to their surprise, he responded calmly. He said, "Hey, I found myself in a predicament. I'm in the air right now, just kind of flying around." This wasn't a hijacking, no threats were made, no one else was on board. Richard was flying solo. ATC responded, "Just gonna keep that nose level and see if you can start a left-hand turn."
I found myself in a bit of a predicament. I'm in the air right now.
Did you just take off?
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to be on that aircraft?
No.
Richard responded, "I think I got some gas to go check out the Olympics. And yeah, I think I'll do a barrel roll. And if that goes well, I'll nose down and call it a night. He performed stunning aerial maneuvers that aviation experts said were nearly impossible. Without formal training, barrel rolls, dives, even a loop. Witnesses on the ground saw a plane cartwheel across the sky in defiance of gravity. But beneath the spectacle was a man unraveling in real time. Richard said, "I've got a lot of people that care about me. It's going to disappoint them to hear that I did this. I'm just a broken guy. I've got a few screws loose, and I guess I never really knew until now."
I played video games before, so I know what I'm doing a little bit.
Throughout the flight, Richard was polite, even humorous. He cracked jokes, thanked the ATC staff, but his words were laced with finality. He repeatedly said he didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted to know what it felt like to fly. At 8:46 p.m, the Q400 disappeared from radar. He'd crashed into a wooden area on Ketron Island, a remote patch of land. No one else was hurt. The FBI ruled it suicide. What makes Richard's story so different from many other true crime stories is the deep emotional ambiguity. He didn't fit the profile of a criminal, a threat. He didn't intend to harm. In fact, he went out of his way to make sure that no one else was hurt. But he committed a federal crime. He stole a $30 million plane. He terrified air traffic controllers, scrambled military jets, and risked countless lives. So what do we make of him? Was he selfish, desperate, brave, broken? Maybe all of the above. Ultimately, Richard Russell, Sky King, left behind a loving wife, family, friends, and a personality that no one's going to get to see anymore. He seemed like a really amazing guy. Just goes to show the strain that some people go through, and sometimes you just can't get through it. And this is probably one of the most sad and emotional cases of it. You know, what a nice guy and what a legend. If you or anyone you know is suffering from a mental breakdown, depression, harm, self-harm or suicidal thoughts, please reach out to whatever country you're in. There are numbers available. And thank you for joining me on this episode as we mark the anniversary on the 10th of August. Show respect for others. If you find this story powerful, please share it. You know, the more we're aware of the struggle that people face, the more we can tackle it and stop tragedies like this from happening. As this story says, it's more of a heartwarming story than a true crime story. I'm sure the punishment would have been a lot of years in prison had he landed that plane. And personally, I wish he landed that plane and got to tell us the story instead of us telling it for you. I've been your host, Richard Flopper. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.